Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today we're over at the Rosecrans Airport again, and today's going to be just a short little video about landings. I've had a couple of people in my comments and on the Discord server talk to me and ask me about how I land and what steps I take to do it. I can explain it all day long, but sometimes it is just a little bit easier to show how I do it. I'm going to take off from here. I'm going to fly the traffic pattern around the airport here, and I'm going to come in for a landing. I'm going to do it exactly like I do it every time, and I'm going to walk through the steps on how I do it. I'm just going to put out there that I'm not claiming to be the best at it. I'm not claiming to be perfect at it or know exactly what I'm doing. I'm just going to show you what works for me. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get the plane going here. Turn our lights on. Go ahead, we'll go down to full flaps. And I always make sure the flaps go down. I've noticed sometimes when I go up and down on flaps, sometimes it doesn't want to register. So I always make sure that my flaps are good. I make sure that I'm positioned where I need to be for my control stick and stuff. Make sure all my stuff registers. So all right, we'll go ahead and good to go. So all my stuff is set and ready to go. I'm gonna have to go ahead and throttle up here. I always use every bit of runway I got. So about 100. Up off the ground there. Turns up my landing gear, put my flaps up. Now I'm going to be basing my height and everything off of what my ground height was when I first started. My altimeter reads about 680 feet. That's setting on the ground. So when I take off here, I want to be in the ballpark of about 1,000 feet off the ground for my traffic pattern. So once I get near the end of the runway here, I'm going to make my crosswind turn, and I'm going to start climbing. So I'm about 1,000. It reads 1,000, but I'm actually about 400 feet off the ground right now, give or take. So now that I'm past my runway, I'm going to go ahead and make my first turn onto my crosswind, and I'm going to make it a climbing turn. I'm going to get up to my pattern altitude. I've read and seen in multiple videos in different places like the flight manuals that the standard pattern altitude is about 1,000 feet above ground level. So I am going to get up to 1,600 feet in this right here because that will make me about 1,000 feet up. Sometimes I'm a little high, sometimes a little low, but as long as I'm right in there somewhere. So now I'm going to be looking back, and I want to give myself a decent little base when I go to do it. So I come out a little ways over a little town of Elwood here, and I'm going to make my turn onto my downwind, my left turn onto downwind. Most of your runways are left-hand traffic patterns, so if you're wanting to do it right, then go ahead and you come out to the left here. So I come around, level out. Now I usually try to keep the runway about on the edge of my wing, kind of like where it is right there. That just gives me enough space to do my base and do everything I do for that, and it works out for me. You can do it obviously closer or farther out. I would suggest while you're practicing that give yourself a little bit of a longer base just to get yourself set up and lined up. The beauty of this game is the fuel is free, so why not? Now, as I get up here, the first step I do to prepare for my landing is once I'm abeam the numbers. Abeam the numbers means once they're off to my side, about where they are, I drop the landing gear down. That landing gear is going to start slowing me down. Okay? So I just keep adjusting my pitch as necessary to keep. I'm actually a little high in my pattern right now. I'm sitting at 1,800. Maybe about 1,600. It's alright. Now, normally you want to start your base turn at the 45-degree mark from the runway. So I use this little patch of land right here. I fly this area a lot, and so that's what I typically use. And to be honest, that's actually, it might be about the 45. I'm going to go into photo mode here real quick. So there's the edge of my runway. And so that little patch of grass right there and right there, that puts me about at my 45-degree mark. So from there, I'm going to go ahead and turn onto my base. Turn little wide, but that's okay. Sometimes a longer final is not a bad thing. And I make my final while I'm descending a little bit, get down closer to my final altitude that I want to be when I start my final approach. I do have a bit of a wind here, so I'm going to go ahead with my first notch of flaps, throttle off just a hair. Not too much though, as I'm just still descending. I'm getting up to about where I want to start my turn on the final. And I'm about, oops, a little much. It's a little harder to do when I'm actually talking about it. Make my turn on the final here. I got a nice long final, which again, not a bad thing. So I'm about 400 feet off the ground right now. Once my wings are level, I go ahead and get my last notch of flaps. Now that's going to want to pitch you up a little bit. From here, I keep a hold of the throttle the whole way. Now, normally you want to keep about a 3-degree glide slope. I normally used to focus on that a lot, but I found that it's just easier to keep the sight picture. So while controlling my speed and controlling the stick, I try to keep that runway about where it is right there, coming right at me. You don't want it creeping below the airplane. You don't want it moving around. You want it about center, and you want to be going right down towards it. I just keep feathering the throttle a little bit, controlling it as needed. As I get closer, I start to throttle back a little bit more, not too much though. I'm sitting right about there. Keep throttling her back a little bit more. Keep my nose up a little bit, aiming for the numbers. I get ready to cross that threshold. I'm starting to pitch up here a little bit, transitioning to down the runway. I throttle off just a hair as I'm coming back down. Nose up a little bit and throttle off. And there she is. Beautiful little touchdown. Throw on my brakes, keep control of my thing. I got a little bit of a crosswind and a little bit of stick drift, so but keep her center line. We ride her on out. And with the new brakes, the beauty of it is I should be able to go ahead and throw my flaps up too while I'm at it. But I'll be able to make my first taxiway turn here if I wanted to. I can throw off the brakes a little bit, give just a little throttle. See, if you threw those brakes on, it would tilt it over and it would throw the plane over. So I'm glad the developers have finally fixed that. But with that landing, I'm able to come in and make my first turn off the taxiway here. I clear the runway. We'll even clear her all the way out to the end of the line here. Past that line, I'm going to throttle off completely, go ahead and hit my brakes. I'm going to bring her to a full stop. Once she stopped and leveled back out here, kill my engine, refuel the plane, and I'm ready to do whatever I want. So just to go ahead and recap that there, I take off. Like I said, once your speedometer, I noticed in this current update, once your airspeed indicator hits the 100 mark, that's about a good time to start putting that back pressure on the stick and bringing the nose up. Once you get up off the ground and you feel that the plane is flying, like I said, after you play a little while, you should be able to tell if you're sinking down or if you're actually climbing. Once you do, go ahead and throw that gear up. That creates a lot of drag. Throw your gear up, you'll start to climb a lot faster. Throw up your flaps. Be careful though, when you throw up the flaps, the nose wants to pitch down. So make sure you got a good height, you got a good control of the plane. Throw your flaps up there, and then you get out to your first turn onto your crosswind turn. Make it a climbing turn. Get up to your pattern altitude, about 1,000 feet. That's going to be different from whichever runway you come off of. Like I said, my starting altitude on the ground is about 660, 680 feet, somewhere in there. So I use that to base my pattern altitude off at about 1,600 feet. And so from there, you give yourself a decent crosswind. All right, especially if you're still getting used to it. The farther out you are, the bigger that your base is going to be as you're coming in, and that's going to help you out a lot more. That's going to give you more time to prepare. So you come, once you get far enough out, you make your left-hand turn onto your downwind. So from there, you'll be going down the runway this direction. Once you get at about 45 degrees from your, let me zoom in here on the map here. 45, I said my stuff, okay. 45 degrees off the runway here. Actually, sorry, I skipped a step. Once you're abeam those numbers, this is what I do. I throw my gear down. It creates that drag. That way I don't got to mess with the throttle just yet. You can if you want, especially if you got a tailwind pushing you along, but mess with it as needed. Get a feel for it. So, but once you're 45 degrees to that runway, go ahead and make your turn on to base. So on your base turn, you're going to be descending a little bit. Once you level out, go ahead and hit your first notch of flaps. Now, like I said, it's going to want to up your nose a bit and everything. So you might have to throttle her off just a hair. And when I say a hair, I mean a hair. I mean just a little bit, just like that. Okay? You might even have it set right here on your downwind leg as you're going along there. After you throw your gear down and stuff, especially if you got a decent little tailwind pushing you along, you might throttle her back to about here. All right? So like I said, you make your turn on the base, drop your first notch of flaps, everything, and throttle her off a little bit. Just keep control of the plane. So once you get to your turning point onto the runway, you should be coming in. And again, the longer you give yourself a final, the more time you're going to have. So as you're practicing, give yourself that time on that final. Make your turn on the final. Once your wings are level, everything, go ahead and go down to full flaps. Again, it's going to want to pitch that nose up. And then when you do, after that point, once I go ahead and I get my full notch of flaps and my gear is down, I keep a hold of that throttle the whole time. And I will work it. And I will try and feel the plane. Everything, because you'll start to be able to notice if you play enough that it's wanting to sink on you, or it's too high or too low. You want that runway coming right at you and just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. If it's coming down like this, you're a little too high. If it's coming up like this, you're a little too low. You want it coming straight at you like that. So you want to aim at those numbers or the threshold lines as you're coming on down. Keep control of that throttle and everything. You might have to give yourself a little bit of power if you're too low and everything, and work on the pitch of the plane. You might have to throttle off a little bit if you're too high and nose it down a little bit and stuff. The beauty of it is as you're throttling off, she's going to lose height. As you're coming in, once I get near that threshold and everything, basically I get to a point where as I'm pulling back on the stick to level out the plane as I'm going down the runway and everything, I'm transitioning from this angle to more of a this angle. I'm throttling back and pulling back almost at the same time, almost evenly sometimes. And as I'm doing that and everything, that plane's going to come down. And once you get low enough to the ground, you can even pitch up the nose just a hair as you throttle completely off. And like you saw, she's going to set down just fine. I've noticed that in this current update, that as you're going along, if you get that stall warning, there's a good chance that if you're not low enough and you start to drop on that stall warning when you hit the ground, you're going to explode. It's happened to me numerous times, and I have found that I want to avoid getting that stall warning. I know in real life, a lot of times when pilots are flying, as you come down and do your flare and everything, you get that little stall warning and the plane drops down to the runway. That works in real life. In this game, it's questionable. But keep practicing that. Do like I did there, and just, keep doing that circuit. That's how I do it when I'm coming into other airports and stuff, and from anywhere else. I try to position myself as I'm coming in and everything on a base as I'm coming in and everything. So I see my runway. I don't care to come in like this or down or straight in on a final. I try to come in from this angle and give myself a decent base and then a good final and then come in. And that helps me out a lot. So I hope that video helped. So hopefully you watch it, and hopefully it helps you figure out your landings from now on and stuff. But again, that's how I do it. I'm not saying that's the proper way to do it. I'm not saying that is the end-all be-all way to do it. But as you saw, I landed the plane just fine. So hope you enjoyed the video. Like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next one.